go. The first thing the Gemara is bothered with is this idea that the Gemara calls the Mishnah had a case where the Mishnah said, so it said about Malika inside and bringing it outside, Malika outside, bringing it outside, slaughtering inside and bringing outside, and then slaughtering outside and bringing outside. And then it said, like a summary was, the Mishnah said in the first line of the page was that anything which is done to be machshir, to validate the sacrifice inside, so then you'll be exempt outside. And anything which is done to validate it outside, you'll be exempt inside. Now, anything done to validate it outside doesn't make sense, because if you do something to validate it, like a shrita outside, you're not making it kosher. You're not being machshir it. You're not making it valid. So those words don't really fit. Which the Gemara says, "Hayehechshero chiyuvohu." It's not that you are validating it; it's that you're liable for doing it outside. Anything you're liable for outside, you'll be liable for inside. That's what it means. Hayehechshero chiyuvohu. So tani chiyuvo. So amend the Mishnah and write chiyuvo. Anything you're liable for outside, like slaughtering, so then you'll anything you're liable for doing outside, if you do it inside and bring it outside, you'll be liable. Okay, so now we're going to go through the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon said, he responded cryptically and vaguely to the Tanakama, and he said, Kol shechayav Allah b'chutz chayav al kiyotzi b'fnim. So once again, the Tanakama said, just get it clear. Go back up. So the Tanakama said that anything which is done, inside, you'll be exempt for outside. Anything which is done outside, you'll be exempt for inside. Rabbi Shimon says anything which you're liable for outside, if you were to do it inside and bring it outside, so then you're going to be liable, except for slaughtering inside and bringing up outside. Okay, so the question is, what do these two opinions argue on? So this statement of Rabbi Shimon, that anything you do which you're liable for outside, if you were to do it inside and bring it outside, you're going to be liable. So what is that referring to? So heichakai. To which part of the Mishnah is Rabbi Shimon responding to? Is he responding to the first part of the Mishnah or the second part of the Mishnah? The first part of the Mishnah was talking about doing malika inside and doing malika outside. So says the Gemara, well, if you want to tell me, going on the first part of the Mishnah where it says that malika on a bird done inside and brought outside, you're liable. And if you do malika outside, and you're bringing up outside, you're exempt. That's what our Mishnah said. And Rabbi Shimon now responds, and you want to tell me that Rabbi Shimon's arguing and saying, just like malika is liable inside, it should be liable outside as well. So then his phraseology should have been different. Why did he say whatever you're liable for outside, X, Y, and Z? It should be whatever you're liable for inside, if that's what he's referring to. Okay. Ella, maybe he means like this. Maybe it means that just like you are exempt for malika outside, you should be exempt for doing malika inside and bringing it outside. Well, if that's true, his phraseology should be different. Anything which you are not liable for, that's what it should say, not anything which you are liable for. So Ella, where he's not going on the first part of the Mishnah because his phraseology doesn't fit, he must be going on the latter part of the Mishnah, which means Ella The Mishnah says if you slaughter a bird inside the courtyard and you bring it up outside, you're going to be exempt. But if you slaughter it outside and bring it up outside, you're going to be liable. So maybe now Rabbi Shimon says, Rabbi Shimon, maybe Rabbi Shimon says that just like inside, slaughtering inside and bringing it outside, you're going to be exempt. So too, if you slaughter it outside and bring it up outside, you're going to be exempt as well. Well, if that's true, his phraseology should be different. It should say anything which you are exempt for, which you're not liable for, not anything which you are liable for. So it says the Gemara, okay, another attempt. Maybe just like you would be liable if you slaughter outside and bring it outside, you should be liable if you slaughter inside and bring it outside. So on that, the Gemara says, but Hakatani, the last line of our Mishnah says, whatever Rabbi Shimon says is coming to exclude somebody who slaughters inside and brings it up outside, which you are exempt for. So obviously Rabbi Shimon can't be talking about making you liable for that case if the next line of the Mishnah says that you are exempt in that case. Okay. So now we're going to have, I think, 3 answers. What's the difference between Rabbi Shimon and the first opinion of the Mishnah, Tanakama? Amar Zeiri, Shechitas Behema Balayla Ika Benayu. Slaughtering an animal at nighttime, which is the incorrect time to slaughter an animal. But this is going to be a difference between the first opinion in our Mishnah and Rabbi Shimon. The Hachikamer, and this I have to read the Mishnah. If you slaughter an animal inside the courtyard at nighttime, balayla, v'hela b'chutz, and then you bring it up outside, you're going to be exempt. Why? Because such an animal, according to that opinion, if you slaughter at nighttime and you want to go put on the altar inside, you got to remove it. So since you have to remove it from the altar, it can't stay there. You'll be exempt if you do it outside. Shachat b'chutz b'layla, if you slaughter it outside at nighttime, the hela b'chutz chayiv. But there, if you slaughter it outside at nighttime, so once it's invalid by slaughtering it outside, it's invalid. It's invalid. There's a prohibition to slaughter things outside, and it doesn't differentiate between nighttime or daytime. So that you're going to be liable. And on that, Rabbi Shimon Omer, Kol shechayavin alav b'chutz, chayavin al kayotze bo b'fnim v'hela b'chutz. Chutz min hashochet oh b'fnim v'hela b'chutz. To that, Rabbi Shimon says, no. If you're liable for slaughtering the animal outside the temple at nighttime and bringing it up, so then you're going to be liable if you slaughter it at nighttime inside the courtyard and bring it up outside. You'll be liable, except for the case of slaughtering a bird inside and then bringing it up outside. Like a slaughtering inside, you have to do malika. Slaughtering is like shooting it dead. That for sure you can't bring up on the altar, and therefore you're not going to be liable for bringing it up outside. So the first difference between the first answer to what the machlokas is slaughtering an animal inside the courtyard at nighttime and then bringing up as a sacrifice outside the temple. So that's the Iri's answer. Rava Amar, a different answer. If you accept the blood in a mundane vessel, so instead of using a sanctified vessel, you used your coffee mug. So the Haki Kamar, and this is what it means. This I read the Mishnah. The first opinion says if you accept the blood in a mundane vessel and you bring it up outside, and then you bring up the sacrifice outside, you're going to be exempt. Because such things are accepting the blood in a mundane vessel, so such a sacrifice will be invalid inside. Therefore, you can be exempt for it outside. However, but if you accept the blood outside the temple in such a vessel, and then you bring it up outside, so then you are going to be you're going to be liable. You're going to be liable. And on that, Rabbi Shimon says, Rabbi Shimon says anything which you're liable for outside, if you were to do it inside and bring it up outside, you'll be liable, except for slaughtering a bird inside and bringing it outside, which you will be exempt for. Yeah. Now, the background of this debate is, how do you view accepting the blood in a mundane vessel? Is that the same as the blood spilling on the ground? If such an offering is put up on the altar, can you leave it there or do you have to take it down? If you have to take it down, so then that's something which, if you do it outside, if you offer the sacrifice outside, you're going to be exempt for, because such an offering inside you cannot offer, and if you do, you have to remove it off the altar. So if you receive the blood in your coffee mug, and you put that offering on the altar, you're going to have to remove it according to the first opinion. So therefore, if you go and bring up that offering outside the temple, you are going to be exempt. But if you hold that that putting it into mundane vessel is like it's already in the vessel maybe, and then it's spilled and you can scoop it back up, or it's not such a bad violation, and therefore if you put up the offering on the altar, you could leave it there. So then if you take that offering and instead of putting it on the altar, you put it outside the temple, so then you are going to be liable. Third opinion, but now according to Abu the Shmuel, he's going to go back and say that Rabbi Shimon's commenting on the first part of the Mishnah. What does he say? Hamolek ofifnim. You do malik on a bird inside the courtyard, and you bring it up outside the temple, you're going to be liable. Malak b'chutz, doing malika outside, that's like shooting it outside, that's nothing. V'hela b'chutz potter, for that you'll be exempt. But Rabbi Shimon mechayev, v'Rabbi Shimon hasamkai, he's going on that first part of the Mishnah. V'tani, and therefore you have to amend the Mishnah and say, kol shechayav alav b'fnim, v'hela b'chutz, anything which you are liable for inside, and you bring it up outside, then you're going to be liable. Chayav alav b'chutz. You'll be liable for it outside. So either the first two opinions, you go on the last part of the Mishnah, and it's either nighttime slaughtering inside the courtyard and bringing up outside, or it's receiving blood in a mundane vessel inside the courtyard and bringing up outside. Where the third opinion goes, it goes on the beginning of the Mishnah by Malika. Okay. Now, chatos shekibel dama because akanasim b'chutz v'chazer v'nasim b'pnim v'chazer v'nasim b'chutz chayiv. So you have a chatas offering where you accepted the blood because echad with one cup. Okay. Nasan b'chutz. So you took some of that and you poured it outside the temple, and then you went and you poured the rest of it inside the temple, or the other way. Bifnim, you poured some of it inside the temple. V'chazar v'nasan b'chutz chayiv, and then you go and you pour the rest of it outside. That you're liable. Shekulo roi bifnim. All of it is fitting to be brought on the altar. Now, we had this opinion yesterday. We're going to see two different things. One is, we know that the actual cup you use to apply the blood on the altar, the leftovers of that cup are called leftovers. Shirayim. Yeah, they're called leftovers. The leftover blood is a debate. Is that essential for the chatas, for the sin offering, or not? Rabbi Nechemia holds yes. Therefore, if you apply remnants outside the temple, you're going to be liable, and that's what we just said in our Mishnah. Now, we're going to say something else, which the Gemara is going to talk about. What if you accept the blood in 2 cups? That you want to do in 2 cups. I don't know. So now, when you pour the blood from 1 cup, you apply it onto the altar, and you fulfilled your obligation. What's the status of the second cup? Is that considered remnants? And if yes, then according to Rabbi Nechemia, if you pour that blood outside the temple, you're going to be liable. That's one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is that no, there's something called dichui. It's pushed aside. You have 2 cups, and only one of them was chosen to be the cup that you're going to apply the blood onto the altar. So if that's true, the second cup is called rejected. It's not that it's shirayim, it's rejected. If it's rejected, it's invalid to be put on the altar. If it's invalid to put on the altar, if you were to pour that outside the temple, you're going to be exempt. Yeah, good. So, kibel dama b'shtei kosos, you accept the blood in 2 cups. Nasan shnehem bifnim potter. This is like a little parenthetical. If you apply both of them inside the temple, so you're exempt. Fine. So shnehem b'chutz, though, if you do apply both of them outside the temple, so then you're going to be liable. Now you, yeah.
Before he applied anything.
Yeah. Took the blood and went outside. Yeah. Jules wants to know why, but he lost the bet. I don't know. So he does it. He brings both of them outside. So now you're liable for each one because once you slaughter the animal and you have the blood of the animal in 2 cups, which one is the one that's going to be offered and which one is rejected? Well, you don't know. You only know after you apply one of them. The second one becomes rejected. So I guess if you apply both of them simultaneously outside the altar, so they're both liable because each of them is fitting to be put on the altar. If you were to apply one of them, so now the second one becomes rejected. Yeah. I don't know. Yes, I don't know if outside the temple. See, since outside the temple, they're both fitting to be put on the altar inside. I don't know if you can give one a status of rejected outside the temple. It's only once you pour one on the altar, the other one gets rejected. But until that happens, they're both fitting to be put on the altar. As long as they're both fitting to put on the altar, so it sounds like even if you don't do it simultaneously, you're going to be liable. It says you're liable one. Rashi says only if you didn't have if you did them without realizing, let's say that meaning why are you bringing a chatas offering? Because you did something which, if you did it on purpose, advertently, you'll be liable for kares. So here you did it inadvertently. You didn't know that this is prohibited. So therefore, when you apply both of these cups outside without knowledge that it's prohibited, so then you're only liable one. But if between the applications of the cups, someone told you, hey, by the way, that is prohibited, and then you forgot again, so then you'll be liable 2 chatas offerings for each one, because each one is fitting to be placed on the altar. They don't get a status of rejected by being placed outside the altar, only inside the altar. So now, echad bifnim, you apply one inside the altar, and the second one outside, you're going to be exempt because it's now rejected. It's not that it's remnants, it's rejected. If it's rejected, it can never be fit to put on the altar inside. Therefore, if you do it outside, you'll be exempt. If you pour one of them on outside the altar, outside the temple, and then one inside, so now you're chayav al chitzon, you're liable for pouring the blood outside the temple, and the pnimi, the other one, is still going to atone for you because it doesn't get a status of rejected if the first one was put outside the altar. The only way to get rejected is if one was chosen and applied onto the altar. Until that happens, the second one is not rejected, and therefore, even if you do the one of the cups outside the altar, so that you're liable for, because that was fitting to be put inside the altar, but it doesn't make the other cup rejected. So if you go put that inside the altar now, so then it's going to atone for you. Now,
is this saying that only one of them left? Because once it leaves, bring it back.
So it is a problem. I think we said though, since it was fitting at one point. Is it going to be mechaper for you? Do you have psul yotze? Is that going to mechaper for you? That's the child. Yeah, simply understood. It's not that it didn't leave. If it leaves and comes back, does that atone for you? I don't think so. Maybe you would leave it on the altar, you have to scoop back up out, but I don't think it atones for you. I don't know. But in this case, simply understood, you have 2 cups. One you put down, you left it inside the temple, and one you walked outside to show all your friends your beautiful cup of blood, and then while you're there, you threw it on the altar outside. So now we're going to give a parable. What is this idea of these 2 cups that we just mentioned? What is that comparable to? And the Gemara is going to ask why you need this parable. Okay. Lemad davar domeh, and now we're jumping to Tmura, the end of Tmura. So, yeah, wasn't exciting enough. So lemad davar domeh, lemafresh chataso, that you separate a chatas. You put aside this animal to be a chatas. And now what happens? Well, the guy's a klutz, he loses the animal. Yeah, so whatever it is, or maybe the animal ran away. So the avda, it got lost. Now, what do? You go get another animal. Yeah, you go get another animal. So it's like getting people for a minion, right? You get them inside. So the guy runs away. No, come back. So the animal goes, runs away. You get another animal, come back in. Not that we're saying people are like animals. I'm just saying. So you get another animal in its place. So now, what do? Now the first animal runs back in. Oh, we found the first animal. So now you have 2 animals. So now the rule is going to be similar to our case of rejection, is that Right now, each animal is fit to be slaughtered and brought as your sin offering. But once it's slaughtered, the other one now is going to be not rejected. It's going to be under the category of a chatas that has to be left to die. You can't slaughter the other one. It's one of these sin offerings that it got lost and not been found, so it cannot be slaughtered. The harei shtein omdos, they're both fitting, they're both standing waiting to be slaughtered. Shachat shteihem bifnim. But okay, so you slaughter both of them inside, so you're exempt. What'd you do wrong? Shteihen bachutz chayim. Now, if you slaughter both of them, now here, I don't know exactly how this is going to work, but I think here it's going to have to be simultaneously. I don't know, or very close together in time. But you slaughter both of them outside, so you're liable because each one is fit to be that offering. Maybe here it also means.
I guess as long as each was performed in a different legible way.
Shchita, not the blood, yeah. Meaning even slaughtering outside can't render the other one. Okay. Okay, fine. So it's like the blood. Slaughtering outside can't render the other one as a special sin offering that has to go and die. So fine. So you're going to be liable because each one is fitting to be the one that's going to be your chatos. If you slaughter them outside, you'll be liable. However, achas bifnim, well, once you slaughter one inside, then the other one is not fit to be slaughtered. It's not fit to be put onto the altar as your chatas. It's left to die. Therefore, if you bring it outside the temple, you're going to be exempt. So achas b'fnim, achas b'chutz, potter. Go the other way. Same thing as before. Achas b'chutz. Yeah, here it's clear. If you slaughter one outside, slaughtering outside does not render the other one the special status of a chatas that has to be left to die. Therefore, if the second chatas is slaughtered inside, you'll still achas b'chutz, achas b'fnim. You'll be chayv ala chitzona. You'll be liable for the outside, slaughtering outside, because that's not allowed. That's called shritas chut. You can't slaughter outside the temple. That benim is mechaperes, but the inner, the other chatas will still atone for you because it never got that status of a special chatas that's meant to die because the first one was slaughtered in an invalid way outside the temple. So now, kishem shedama poter es bisara. So just like when you have blood, this is going back on when you slaughter both animals inside the temple. So just like you have blood in 2 cups, and the rule is that basically once, so in general by the meat of a chatos, right, it's liable for me'ilah. You can't misuse it. Once you throw the blood up, it's removed from its me'ilah status because it has a moment now that it could be consumed by a human. The chatos, the kohen could eat it. So when you throw the blood of one of the cups, so it's going to exempt the other one from me'ilah as well. So you have 2 cups of blood. So throwing the blood of one will exempt the other one from me'ilah. Kachi poteres es besar chaverta. So too, when you have 2 of these animals, the slaughtering of one will remove the other one from me'ilah, because the rule is that an animal like this chatos, that is the one that was lost and got found again, so such an animal, there's no me'ilah on that animal, meaning it has some level of sanctity and it doesn't have other levels of sanctity. So therefore, once you slaughter one animal and now the other one gets a status of the special chatas that's left to die, it's now no longer going to have me'ilah because now it has that status. So okay. Yeah. Okay. Now, says the Gemara on the next page. I understand if you have 2 cups and one is poured outside the temple and the other one's poured inside the temple, that the one that was outside the temple is fitting to be placed on the altar, and therefore you're going to be liable. Aval bifnim, But if you have one cup and you pour it inside the altar, and now your other cup you bring outside, so says the Gemara, why are you exempt for that? Shouldn't it be shirayim ninu? It should be remnant. Next page. Yeah, that's it. Page. Yeah. Page back. Yeah, go back. 112a. Yeah. So if you have a cup of 2 cups of blood, one is brought inside and one is brought outside, the Gemara is asking, shouldn't the blood be brought outside be the same as remnants of 1 cup? So if you have 1 cup that there's blood and you apply it on inside the altar, and the remnants of the blood you apply outside, we're saying, like the Mishnah goes, like Rabbi Nechemia, you're going to be liable. So even if you have 2 cups and the second cup is applied outside, it should be the same as the remnants of the first cup, and you should be liable. Why are you not liable? Says the Gemara, Hamani, Rabbi Nechemia. This is Rabbi Nechemia. Remnant blood brought outside the temple, you're going to be liable for. So you should be liable. Rabbi Nechemia, if it was Rabbi Nechemia, Ema Seifa. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. I jumped the gun. They just go on the first part of the Mishnah. The first part of the Mishnah is asking, why are you liable if you apply the remnant blood outside the temple? And the answer is because we're going like Rabbi Nechemia, who says that remnant blood brought outside the temple is liable because he holds that remnant blood is essential for your atonement. Fine. Now I jumped the gun about Rabbi Nechemia. If it's Rabbi Nechemia, Ema Seifa, say the end of the Mishnah when you have 2 cups. Kibel dama b'shnei kosos. Here's our case. You have blood of 2 cups. Nasan shneim b'fnim pot. You put both of them inside the temple. Exempt. Shneim b'chutz chayev. Both of them outside liable. Echad b'fnim, echad b'chutz potter. Whoa, why are you exempt? 1 cup inside, 1 cup outside. Why are you exempt? Shouldn't it be remnants? Remnant blood brought out to the temple, you're going to be liable for. So you should be liable here too. So we say the Seifa Asal the Tanakama, the blood of Rabbi Shimon. The Seifa of the Mishnah goes like the Tanakama who argues on Rabbi and Rabbi Shimon the Amar, Kos Oset Dicha the Chavero, that 1 cup makes the other cup rejected. And that is why our Mishnah is going like. It's going like the opinion that says that when you have 2 cups and 1 cup is brought, it makes the other cup rejected. Yeah. Okay. Now, when we had this idea of 2 cups inside the altar, you pour both of them. So that was comparable to a chatas offering that was lost and then found. So then you find the first chatas. So what do you need a parable for? So we say to teach you like this: Hamani Rebihi. So once again, our Mishnah said that we need this parable. Why do you need a parable for? So it's going like the opinion of Rebbe. What did Rebbe say? The Amar Avuda B'Shasa Frasha Mesa. So the question is like this: when the animal gets lost and you have another one in its place, at that point, when you find the first animal, it's left to die, or only if you found it after you already slaughtered the first animal. At what point is the second one left to die? So Rebbe says Avuda B'Shasa Frasha, that Mesa. If it's found even before slaughtering, so that's going to be, it has to be left to die. Yeah. So now, the Hachi Kamer, and this is what we're saying. Taima the Avda. The reason is that the animal got lost. But what if it didn't get lost? What if it was Hifrish Shtechatos? What if it was, what if you designated 2 chatos la'achrayis? What if right away you said, yeah, if you right away you separated 2 offerings right off the bat. This is my chatas and this is my insurance policy, right? So you didn't wait till it got lost. Yeah, see, I'm getting a little distracted. I apologize. No, it's my fault. It's just hard for me. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. So if you designated off the bat, this is my animal that I'm bringing as a chatas. This is my animal that's in my insurance policy. that's going to be my backup in case it gets lost, then it has a different status. So it's going to be a difference if it got lost and then you made a new one, you designated a new one, or off the bat, you designated two. What's going to be the difference? If you designated a backup offering right away, and then your chatas gets lost, so the second one is going to be left to graze until it gets a blemish. Once it gets a blemish, so then you're going to sell it and use the money as an olas kates. And olas kates are those offerings that are brought to the temple when it's quiet in the temple, the dessert offerings. You bring them when nothing's happening as an honor to the temple that things are happening, that there's noise. So that there's So if you do that, so so then if you do it, so then one of them is going to become an ola. So just like an asham that has to go graze, and then you and then in asham that, let's say it has to go graze, so one that, let's say it got lost and you made another one, then you found the first one, so an asham is left to go graze, and then you have both of them there, and you slaughtered one of them, stam, without having it in mind it should be an ola. However, it becomes an ola. It's going to become an ola. So why are we bringing this whole thing in? So 1 second. Yeah, it's coming to teach you this law. It's coming to teach you this law of when one is going to be rejected, and therefore, if you slaughter it outside, it's going to be either exempt or liable. So, okay, so that's similar to what we said by an asham. Let's say an asham that you exchange its sanctity onto another animal. So such an asham has to graze. If you now slaughter it without having intent, it becomes an ola, and that ola, that's similar to what we just said, that this other animal also become an ola. Yeah, so basically, we're bringing this whole thing in the Mishnah is to teach you this law, that the Mishnah was talking about the animal that you separated, and the other one got lost. And then you found the first one. So then when you slaughter one of them, the other one will become rejected. Or according to Rebbe, even if you didn't slaughter it, as long as you designated a second one, it'll become rejected. And therefore, if you bring it outside, you're going to be liable. It's coming to teach you, though, if you have both of them, when you designate both of them, and one is the backup, then it's going to be an ola. And that ola, if you were to slaughter that outside the temple, you would be liable, as opposed to the rejected offering where you will not be liable. So for that law, we brought this in. Okay. Now, says the Gemara, me dummy, you can't compare our case to an asham case. Why? In asham is a male offering. Asham is zachar, the ola zachar. In asham is male and in ola is male. But achatas is nikevahi. So achatas is a female offering. So how do you want the female offering to become an ola and the ola is a male offering? That doesn't work. So how can you tell me that if you designate two animals right off the bat, two sin offerings, my sin offering and my backup sin offering, and then it got lost and you found it, so then it becomes an ola. But how do you go? It's a chatas is female and then ola is male, and therefore how does it become an ola? That the Gemara says you're right. We're talking about one case. Amar Abchia miustaina b'seir nasi. We're talking about the he-goat of a nasi, that there you assign two of them. One is going to be the offering, right, the offering that's brought if the nasi makes a mistake, a ruling, and then he's found that he made a mistake, he has to bring an offering, a he-goat. Both of these he-goats, the he-goat here is a chatas offering, it's a sin offering, but it's a zachar. This case, it's a male offering, and therefore the ola is also a male offering. So in this one case, it's going to make sense where you can make both of them as your as one of them as your offering, one of them as your backup offering, and therefore if it gets lost and found again, so then you can have this sin offering have the status of an ola offering, and they're both going to be male, and therefore that you won't get into any trouble. Okay, now we have a very long Mishnah. So We should be able to finish it. Today is Wednesday. Okay, we can do this. Here we go. So it's just a mission full of rules. So paras chatas. Now a para duma is brought outside the temple. Special pit on the Mount of Olives. If you ever been to the Mount of Olives, very few Jews and a large amount of Arabs. So they did not tell me that when I was 18 years old. As I walk around, hey, how many Jews live here? Not so many. How many Arabs live here? A lot. So oh, that's okay. We have protection. Yeah, don't worry about it. So anyways. So on Harazation, you bring the paraduma, the red heifer. It gets burnt, and you're going to mix it with the ashes and the water. So what happens if you do the process outside its pit, a special pit for it? So paras katas shesarfa, you burn it chutz migita. So now you burn it outside of its pit. V'chein stira mishtaleach, the he-goat that gets thrown off the cliff. If you bring it as an offering instead. You hear Jules' question, like, who would do that? On Yom Kippur, you have one job to do: throw it off the cliff and you slaughter it. Yeah. That you're going to be exempt for. Why? It's only offerings, only offering that is fit to enter the tent of meeting. If you're not fit to enter into the courtyard, into the temple to be brought as an offering, then you're going to be exempt. The he-goat, even though it's sanctified as a he-goat on Yom Kippur, but it's never fit to be brought inside the altar. It gets thrown off the cliff. Therefore, if you slaughter it outside, you're going to be exempt. Now, here we go. Haroveya v'hanirba. Either the animal is one who's sodomized or it gets sodomized. V'hamuktzah, it's set aside for idol worship. V'hanevad, it's served as an idol. V'hamechir, or it's exchanged for a dog. Thank you. The estan, it's given as payments for prostitution. The hakilaim, it's an offspring of a breed. The hatrefa, or it's a trefa, or v'yotiv, or it's a C-section. Shekriban b'chutz pater. All of these that brought outside, you're all exempt. Shenamar lifnei mishkan Hashem, kol shein roi level lifnei mishkan Hashem, ein chayav and alav. It's only things that are fit to be brought to the tabernacle. If not fit to be brought to the tabernacle, you're not liable for it. What about a blemished animal? There's two kinds of blemishes. One are permanent, no leg, that's permanent, as opposed to, has a bruise is healed. Turn the page. Whether it's a temporary or it's a permanent wound, a blemish, you bring it outside, you're exempt. Potter. Rabbi Shimon Omer, no, it depends. A permanent blemish, you're potter for, but and not kares. A permanent wound, blemish on the animal, you're exempt if you do it outside because you can't bring it inside. However, Rabbi Shimon says if it has a temporary wound, so you're not going to get kares, but you still violated a negative commandment. Now, we have two kinds of birds. I don't know how to change that. A turtle dove and a pigeon. The Turim, the Turim is a turtle dove, and the Benayon is a pigeon. Okay, so the turtle dove, its rule is it has to be a certain level of maturity. It's very weak when it's younger. So if you bring it before that time, or the opposite, a Benayon, you can't bring it past a certain time, and you bring the pigeon past a certain time. You bring those outside the temple, you're exempt because you can't bring them inside the temple. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Benayon, she'avers manam pater, beturim shlo higias manam b'lo yisaseh. A Bnei Yonah, he agrees, a pigeon that passed its time, exempt. However, he's going to say that he says that a turtle dove has not reached its time yet. You're going to have a negative commitment and not kares. He's going to end up saying, we're going to say, animals that you preempted, but they're going to reach eligibility, those animals, you're still violating a negative commandment, just not kares. Now, you're not allowed an animal that's being brought as a sacrifice, you cannot slaughter it and a child on the same day. Let's say you did. Also, that's beno. That's one. Or michosherzman, or you brought your offering before the proper time outside the temple. So we're going to say a woman who gives birth, she has to wait a certain amount of time for a boy, for a girl. If you preempt that sacrifice and you bring it outside, you're exempt. Rabbi Shimon Omer, harei zebulei saseh. No, preempting the time, you're still over a negative commandment, just not kares. Rabbi Shimon Omer, here we go. Kol shirai level acharzman, harei zebulei saseh. Any animal which is fit to be brought afterwards, you're going to violate a negative commandment and not kares, the aimbo kares. The Chachamim Omrim, they go together. Kol she'en bo kares, ein bo lo sas. Anyone who doesn't have kares doesn't have a negative commandment either. Okay. Mechusar zman, an animal, bein begrufo, bein bebailov. So some kind of category, vague category of lacking time, whether it or its owners. So what does that mean? Ezu mechusar zman bebailov. What's an example of lacking time of the owners? So that is hazav, v'hazava, v'hayoletet, v'hamitzora. These people have certain emissions, or one who gives birth, or a mitzora. There's a certain time where they're obligated, when that time passes, to bring an offering. If they preempted and bring that offering outside the temple, so then you're going to be exempt. Sheikriven chatasam, the ashamam, their chatas or their asham, bachutz, pturin. Then they're exempt. However, they're also, some of them are obligated to bring an ola and a shlamim as well. Those offerings, even if they preempt, they're going to be liable because those offerings can always be brought as donations. So in Olo saying Vishalmein Bachutz Chayavin, that you're going to be liable for because those can be brought as donations, and therefore, even though you preempted these obligations, that you're still, if you bring it outside the temple, you'll be liable for that. Now, Hamala Mibasar Katas, Mibasar Asha, Mibasar Kachar Kadashim, Mibasar Kachim Kalim, Umosar Haomer, Yishtei Lechem, Belechem Panim, Bishar Menachos. So now, let's go one by one. You bring up the meat of a chatas offering, or of an asham offering, or of a holy sacrifice offering, or of a lesser sacrifice offering, of a lesser sanctity offering, or the leftover of the omer, the one you bring on by the spheres omer, the second day of Pesach, the leftover of the omer, or your shtei alechem, or the bread you bring on Shavuos, or the lechem upon him, your showbread you have every week, or shari menachos, or leftover flour offerings, or hayotzek, the haposes, the habolo, or your pouring, or your poses is to the ground. You gotta bring the pieces, titos or crumbs in Hebrew. The habolel to mix together, or the hamolech, or your salting, or hamenif, or your waving, or your magish, bringing up the blood, bring up the bringing the mincha offering. The masaders shulchan, or your masaders shulchan. You organize the special shulchan. You're doing this all outside the temple. You're cleaning out the candles, setting up the wicks, the hakomet, and you're scooping up the flour. Makabel damim, and you receive blood. Bachutz. Imagine this: you take the table, you do it outside. So this is where we're going to see. Maybe to Steve's point that at the time that you're allowed to do things outside, it can be easily confused. So you're doing some of these things that are like, really, you're setting up the table that's inside, outside. So either way, if you do all these things outside, you're putter. You're exempt. You're not liable for a service done outside. The ein chayav love, and you're not liable. Below mishum zars, even if a non-kohen does it, you're not liable. Below mishum tuma, and you're not liable if it becomes tamei. Below mishum mechutzer begadim, and if a kohen's lacking clothing. Below mishum shalorachas dam reglaim, and you're not lacking if you didn't wash your hands or your feet for none of these things because they're all not valid. So it's like doing nothing. So therefore, you're not liable for any of the things that you would usually be liable for if you're doing it in its proper way. But since it's outside the temple, therefore you're not liable for any of these things. Okay, here we go. Mounds, bumos. When were they permitted, prohibited? So here we go. Ad shelo hukam hamishkan, the tabernacle in the desert, until it was not erected. Hayu habamos mutaros. The bamos were permitted. You can bring a mound and bring a sacrifice. The avoda was bibechoros, and the avoda was with the firstborn. Once the tabernacle was erected, so then nesra bamos, the bamos were forbidden. The avoda bekohanim, and the avoda was done by the kohanim. Fine. In that scenario, you would eat the super holy sacrifices inside the curtains, because then they had curtains. Basically, they had walls. The kachim kalim b'chol machane Yisrael, and the lower level sanctity sacrifices can be eaten in kol machane Yisrael. Now they got to Yericho and they had the tabernacle in Gilgal. Bo the Gilgal hutcher bamos. Then they were permitted again. The holy sacrifices were eaten inside the curtains. The kachim kalim b'chol machane, and the lower level sanctity sacrifices were eaten anywhere. Now they got to Shiloh, and then they were there for a long time. I think 369 years. The tabernacle was there, so what happened? Nesru habamos. Then they were prohibited again. Below hayasham tikra ella base avanim bilvad. There was no roof on the tabernacle. There was just a there's base avanim bilvad milamatan, the hayirios milamatan. There's some kind of stones below and curtains on top. Vihi haisa menucha, and that it says in Devarim, that it says in Devarim, that there's going to be a place called Menucha. Until you get to a place called Menucha, the Torah was referring to Shiloh. Shiloh was called Menucha. Fine. What happened over there? Very holy sacrifices were consumed inside of the curtains, the kachim kalim, and lower level sanctity sacrifices, and meiser sheni b'chol haroa. Anybody who could see the tabernacle in Shiloh, you were permitted to eat lower level sacrifices and meiser sheni. That was the rule. As long as you could see the tabernacle, a place that's fitting to see the tabernacle, so whatever that distance is, then you would be allowed to eat the sacrifice. Bolanova, given they got to Nova Giva, what happened? But Trabamos, then they were permitted again the Bamos. The Kachim Kadashim, the very holy sacrifices were eaten inside the curtains, and Kachim Kalim B'chol Ari Yisrael, and the lower level sanctity sacrifices were eaten in all the cities of the Jewish people. Now it happened, Bol Yerushalayim, they got to Yerushalayim, Nesru Abamos, V'lo Hayalahan Henter, and there was no permissibility at all. V'hi Haisa Nachala, and that's what the Torah referred to as Nachla, your portion, was when you come back to Yerushalayim, was a prophecy from Hashem. When you come back to Yerushalayim, that's what it was referring to when they got back to Yerushalayim. In that, when they got back, what happened? The very holy sacrifices were eaten in the courtyard, which is called in front of the curtains, and kachim kalim u'maiser sheni lifnim minachoma, they can be eaten in the inners of the wall of Yerushalayim. Now, at a time where you are prohibited to offer sacrifices on these mounds, on these bamos, so any that you sanctified at a time that it was prohibited to bring up a sacrifice on the mounds, the hikrivan, and you brought it up at that time that it was prohibited, b'shas iser bamos mibachutz harei elu ba'aseh v'lo isaseh. You're over a positive violation, a negative violation, and you get kares. However, if you sanctified it when it was permitted, and then it became prohibited, and you brought it up when it was prohibited, you are liable. You violated a positive and a negative, but no kares. If hikdishan b'shas iser abamos, you sanctified it at a time where the bamos were prohibited, the krivan b'shas heter bamos, but you brought it up at a time when they were permitted. So then, hare elu ba'aseh, the ein bahen lo saseh. It's only a violation of a positive command, not a negative command. Now, the elu kachim craven b'mishkan. These are the offerings that even when you had these bamos, you still had to bring some of the offerings in the tabernacle. You couldn't bring it on the bamos. So when you had a tabernacle and you had the bamos, some things had to be brought on the tabernacle, such as kachim shehukdashu l'mishkan. If you specifically had in mind that my sacrifice will be sanctified for the tabernacle, that has to be brought only at the tabernacle, not in the bamos. Korbanos tzibur, any communal sacrifices, craven b'mishkan, are brought in the tabernacle. The korbanos hayachid b'bama, but private, personal sacrifices, they can be brought on these mounds. Korbanos hayachid shehukdashu l'mishkan, a personal sacrifice that was sanctified for the Mishkan has to be brought at the Mishkan. The imhe krivan b'bama, what if you bring it outside the Mishkan now? That you're putter, that you don't get kares. There's no negative violation. Because at the end of the day, it's permitted to bring up these sacrifices outside the temple. One more. There was two kinds of mounds. There's your personal one you made in your backyard, and there's a communal one in the public square. Yeah, in Pioneer Square or something like that, right? So what's the difference? Well, one required smicha, the shchita stafon. It had to do, you had to lean on it, had to be slaughtered in the north, umatan savim, and you had to apply blood around, just like inside the altar. The tenufa, and you had to do waving. The hagash, you had to bring it up to the communal mound. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, no, and Rabbi Yehuda says, "Ein mincha bebama." There's no mincha by a bama. So he argues on the first opinion. The kiyun big day sharis, you have to wear like a kohen. There was kahuna and Yeah, the kiyun meaning if a non-Kohen does it on a personal bama, it's allowed, but not on a communal bama. Big day shares. You have to wear big day kahuna, the kli shares. You have to use special vessels, v'reach nichoach, and you had to do things that made it a fragrance to Hashem, as opposed to different kinds of roasting it. That's going to be not reach nichoach to Hashem. Mechitza, you had to have a wall there, and there had to be damim ledamim. Mechitza ledamim, meaning you had that red string we had on the altar. You had it also by a communal bama. There, richat yadayim v'raglayim, and you also had to wash the hands of the Kohen, his hands and feet on a communal bama, not on a personal bama, not on your backyard mound. Aval hazman v'nosar tamei shavin b'zeh b'zeh. But there is no prohibition of nosar, leaving it overnight by both mounds. The violation of bringing things that are impure don't apply. That's going to be the same in both situations, both on a private mound and on a communal mound. And tomorrow we're going to discuss the flood.
Yashikoach.
Okay, good.